I'd like to invite Glynn Ricketts and Chris Collingwood to join us now. I'm going to mute myself and disappear, and over to you, Glynn. Share your screen.
Yeah, I'm Glynn from the city of Marion. I'm joined by Chris from LD Total. Chris is our contractor we've recently engaged to undertake the actual maintenance. We are about 3/4 of the way through the first year, so we're some way behind Rob in Melbourne there. But I see some of Rob's experiences and they certainly resonate. Like most councils, we have this motherhood statement to really try and incorporate WSUD. Well, what does that mean? Well, I use this quite a bit in talks. It's a pocket park in Marion. Before the drought, it was quite a healthy, good tree canopy, mid-story, understory. And by March 2004, it started to be stressed. And at the end of the drought, that's that same pocket park. So we kind of questioned ourselves across Adelaide how we remedy that, and WSUD part of the tools in the toolbox about how we get some more of that water back in the landscape that Rob just talked about. I think he referred to getting 600% more water off the streets and into those pocket parks and tree inlets and wetlands, and that's what we're trying to do. In Adelaide, we have the Stormwater Management Act that requires councils in catchments to produce stormwater management plans. We've done that successfully in Adelaide. In Marion, we have 2 endorsed and gazetted. We're working on our 3rd, and we got 1 more to do. And really, our stormwater management plans are driving the implementation of WSUD across Adelaide. That's strategically from a policy perspective, and then what we've done in Marion to implement that is put WSUD for the first time into an asset management plan, where Rob talks about maintaining WSUD by having a budget. Putting it into an asset management plan gave us a budget, and it clearly defined roles and responsibilities, because implementation and construction of WSUD, whether it's through a developer or for our own streetscapes program, gives us new assets we need to maintain. So this slide's what Mel and her program committed to doing in 2012. Mel has done that. I think all those bullet points we've kind of ticked off over the years and gone back and revisited them, and it's not just been a static program. We've done that. The asset maintenance of WSUD was probably the last part of the equation, and we've now got a manual which helps drive how we make these WSUDs aesthetically look the part, but more the functional sort of purpose. We have done various WSUD training over the years. I attended a WSUD training back in May 2016 with Rob from Design Flow. But despite that, in council, our WSUDs deteriorating. We just didn't have the in-house capacity, resource, budget, and we were getting more and more assets, and the condition of those assets was certainly deteriorating. That's our experience, and by putting it into an AMP and getting a budget, we're slowly turning that around. I'm conscious of time, so I won't go into what a good WSUD looks like and what a good and what one doesn't. Rob's covered that quite well. But a key moment for me in this journey was the actual production of this maintenance guideline, which assesses condition and ranks it and scores it, enables us to track the condition over time and set intervention triggers, but also how we maintain these assets. So I'd like to ask Mel just quickly to talk about what this guidelines contain and the journey you've been on now to get this out and about, and how people get hold of this.
Sure. So we've built on some really good work from Melbourne Water and Blacktown and Healthy Land and Water in Queensland, and kind of, picked the best bits out of what was going, extrapolated the inspection regime from sort of out of 3 to out of 5 to be consistent with IPWIA's guidelines on asset management. And for Marion, so we've converted our scoring inspection sheet and a series of consistent action items for a range of WSUD assets, not just biofilters, into a spreadsheet that we've provided to City of Marion so that they could pull that into their electronic inspection forms, and Glynn will talk a bit more about that. But it's really just, I suppose, amalgamating the best information we could have. And also we've put in information from our maintenance training that you'd mentioned before by Design Flow. So we've kind of pulled the best information we could into the critical information you need to maintain these assets, into making it readily transition to an electronic format, so that you can collect that data readily. So that's in a nutshell. So they're at draft at the moment. We've got a water sensitive design standard drawings project going. Once those drawings are locked in, we're going to do some isometric drawings from the standard cross sections, drop them into the guidelines, and then they'll be released for general consumption.
Yeah, thanks, Mel.
And use.
So once we had this draft document, the next step for us was really engaging the market. So we used this draft guidelines as specifications, if you like, and we went out to market, and that's where Chris has joined the conversation, because he submitted a tender. It's open call. We had a lot of interest, to be fair, and Chris won it on merit. So Chris, can I ask you just to comment on when you first got these guidelines, how that kind of helped you as a contractor in this whole process?
Thanks. I guess being a contractor, you're tendering on a lot of different things. We do landscape construction, grounds maintenance, mowing, and general commercial maintenance as well. When we saw this come out to tender, and the guidelines and the spec, it was quite clear on the expectations of the maintenance, the frequencies, and what council was wanting to achieve. I guess the extension we saw when we first started looking at the spec and what was in it was there was so much room for improvement, and what Rob was touching on about upgrading stuff, and I guess our interest was trying to improve the existing sites, not just through preventative maintenance, but more about working with the council to highlight areas for improvement, gathering data to actually improve those assets for council. So it was a very clear document. We had no I don't think there was any clarification questions of what was going on. We stuck to what the specification was, but had grand plans of typical contractor being involved in upgrading, improving, making recommendations, and probably learning as well. We're relatively new in South Australia. We can see this as an opportunity and an area that is gaining more and more interest across the state. And there's a couple of us here at LD that have got a genuine interest in this sort of thing, being so close to some of a lot of rain gardens, because we're established in the city of Marion as well. So we drive past them all the time. So there was a genuine interest there as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So on that client contractor relationship, the intent was definitely to have it a specification and have some criteria you can manage the contract against. But what we really wanted was set the criteria, set the inspection frequencies, which we have altered as we go along. We started off on quarterly. We know when it's wet, that's not enough. We've now gone to monthly. So that kind of contract management's led into a healthy conversation between us and our contractor, where we almost put the contract aside and we now have discussions about what's working, what's not, what are the condition scores telling us, so that we're having those conversations about planting orders, and then the physical upgrades to the functionality of the WSUD that Chris can then put quotes in, so that he's actually part of the intervention. Because I think he's quite right. He's gone in lean as far as the proactive maintenance. Before we were just doing reactive maintenance in light of customer events, and we were just basically spraying herbicide everywhere and killing not just the weeds. We've now got a contractor that has some TLC. Aesthetically, they're coming up. Now it's about functionality, and the condition assessments will enable us to prioritize where we spend that capital renewal or upgrade money on. And that's really a conversation we're having with Chris now about how we do that. So Mel mentioned the manual's got a spreadsheet. We converted that spreadsheet into an e-form. Be interested to see if this works. I'll try it. So when Chris and the team are out on site, they have obviously their tablets. They're able to go into our back end of our system and they can click on whichever asset it is. I think we now have 180 odd assets. They've all got IDs, descriptions, and then Chris and the team are able to click on that asset, enter the new record for that month of inspection. They'll score a condition on the different function aspects of the WSUD. Yeah, okay, so that's really the back end of our system where Chris and the team will just click on a particular asset. And then from there, there's various drop downs in relation to the functional aspect of the WSUD, whether it's the inlet, the planting, the outlet, sedimentation loading. Chris and the guys can attach a photograph per functional aspect and they'll give it a score. And then they record what they've done as part of the maintenance, as in what the spec requires. We're then able, clever software, and then we can do reporting on the back of that, where we can drop down to the functional aspect of particular WSUD and look at the scores over time, which is what Rob talked about. We've got 7-8 months worth of data. He's got 5 years, but over time we'll build up a picture based on condition assessments of these assets that we can then start prioritizing capital renewal programs too. It's the first time we've done it in Marion. It's been well received. We took whatever maintenance we were doing from the open space team, which freed them up more time to do more open space maintenance. They weren't really had the capacity or capability to do WSUD, and it's worked. We're starting to get a picture of how these things are performing and the aesthetics, and we'll improve them over time. So I kind of hope that gives you some insight into the journey we're on. We're only just started that journey. Chris, from your perspective, how did the guys go with the reporting and the e-forms and condition assessment?
We haven't had too many troubles other than the occasional forgetting to charge a tablet, but that's quite common here and there. But the guys, it's very straightforward with the drop-down menus. A lot of the time, you know, we do a lot of street tree planting, obviously for the city of Marion too, and using a different sort of setup with forestry. So we do get to compare different systems for reporting back to council and stuff like that. And this hasn't been a drama at all. You know, I suppose the beauty, what we've found as well as contractors working collaboratively with council to actually improve the forms and make recommendations. You know, Glynn and his team brought us in to actually say what's working, what's not, how can we improve it. Obviously, Glynn spoke about the images. I mean, images tell they're probably a lot stronger than a couple of words or a tick and flick. So being able to put a lot of images into the different sections of the reporting form, and then being able to have those images probably in the background being collated for historical reference and to check you know, at a later date with regards to progress for council is really good. So we don't see an issue with the way we're going about it. Hopefully it's going to be, you know, with the reporting and the actual software. It would be nice, you know, I guess from putting a contractor's hat on, that, you know, as long as it'd be great if some councils adopt something very similar, so it's very streamlined. So us as the board, you know, if it does go out to contract, us board contractors don't have to use, you know, 3,000 different platforms for reporting and stuff like that. If there's something that's working and something is really good, then, you know, I think we should spruik it to the different local government organisations and others, just to show that, yeah, because then the data can be captured as a whole as well, like across multiple areas, not just and compared and collated for the greater good of what's going on. So
yeah, thanks, Chris. I take your point about different software platforms. That's utopia. We've all got concurrent sort of platforms, but we're happy to share. SharePoint is what we use. We've got a an IT guy who's fantastic. He's bent and crafted and shaped this to our end need. We're happy to bring people in and share that experience. Absolutely. I'm just aware of time. Just wanted to finish by this slide in that WSUD won't fix it all, is what I used to say. But our current stormwater management plan shows that we've got a catchment that's going to generate 80% more inflow into a receiving drain. That's massive. But what the stormwater management plan did say, if we scattergun and put WSUD everywhere we can reduce that end of pipe discharge, which is really into golf, by over 50%. So WSUD will kind of go a long way to helping local flood issues. And then you've got to maintain it. We weren't really maintaining it. We had no budget. It wasn't in an asset management plan. We had no manual. I think the timing in Adelaide is now right where we've got all these tools in the toolbox, so we can start applying it. So if we can reduce flooding like that by 50% over the next 10 years, even with more intense rainfalls, it's got to be a good thing. And that's really why we're doing what we're doing.
Thanks very much, fellas. Really appreciate you telling your story. And I know it's early days, but I feel like, you know, you're well on your way. And I know there's been some fine tuning as you've gone along. But hopefully, you know, it's a good model. We have had a question here from Andrew King for Chris. Do you feel, because Andrew King's on the Water Sensitive SA Steering Committee, so he's been quite involved in the development side of these guidelines, and he just wanted to know, did you feel the amount of information that's asked for in those inspections and is a lot? Is it undercooked, overcooked? Is it, you know, is the reporting requirement too much?
In our tender process, there was a separate area for reporting. We tried to put a value on it versus how long we're going to do it and how long it's going to take on site and stuff like that. And I guess once you get the eye in and looking at the information that has been requested, I don't think it's, being Goldilocks, I think it's probably just right, to be honest. At the start, it was, as I said, it was, the information was all there, but it was more about probably being able to be on the same page and the information, just getting an image to go with some of that information anyway, so you can link it with an image to the information. So I don't think it's overcooked or undercooked at the moment, but there's always going to be tweaks. It's the same as any of the app people that release apps, they're always tweaking it, stuff like that. So it'll be a work in progress, but I think it's at a very good starting point, definitely. So
thanks, guys. If you wouldn't mind hanging around in case we have some more questions at the end.